gentlemen, could you take your seats, please? So, good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends of the travel and tourism industry, and a big welcome to the second International Tourism Investment Conference. We're delighted that so many of you have taken the time to be here today. I know it's a very busy week at World Travel Market for everyone, so it's great to see so many of you in the room. We've got over 200 guests registered today from lots of countries around the world and speakers from about 20 different countries, including Kenya, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Jamaica, Australia, Malta, Bulgaria, Sierra Leone, Mauritius, Finland, the Bahamas and Zanzibar. So a very, very eclectic and interesting group of speakers. The organisers would like to say a big thank you to all the partners and sponsors. We all know that it would be completely impossible to run an event like this if you didn't have the support of the sponsors. So thank you very much indeed on behalf of the organisers. My name is Daniela Wagner. I'm the Group Business Development Director for Jacobs Media Group, which is one of the largest B2B media groups in Europe. We cover lots of brands that you'll be familiar with, like Travel Weekly, Aspire, Connections and Travolution. And we also organise the International Travel and Tourism Global Resilience Council, which looks at resilience and recovery in the travel and tourism industry and creates a platform for public and private sector dialogue. We're going to be holding our Global Summit next Thursday in London, Thursday the 7th, and I think a lot of people in this room have already registered or are speaking at that event. If you're not, please come and see me in the break, and I'll be happy to take your business cards and invite you along. So my main job today is to try and keep us on time. We've got a very, very fast-paced programme. Lots going on. Some sessions are only 15 or 20 minutes, and I want to make sure that we get through everything and that everyone has the opportunity to say what they wish to say. So I would ask you just to keep to time, the speakers to keep their interventions brief, the moderators to make sure that we don't run over, and then in the networking breaks, exchange as many business cards as possible, and please try to be back here when we need to be back. The theme of the day could not be more relevant: global investment opportunities in sustainable tourism, focusing on Africa, island nations and emerging destinations. It's become increasingly clear in recent years that the sustainable development of the tourism industry is the very key to its survival. Without a sustainable approach, the industry, and indeed our planet, has no future. At the same time, we recognise that globally the tourism sector has become a vital force for the rebuilding of nations, economically, socially, culturally and environmentally. Tourism is a critical lever for national identity and unity, for job creation and for global economic stability and growth. And it has established itself as a powerful means of accelerating aspirations for the advancement of nations and societies. So over the next 2 days, we hope that this conference will help us to achieve the following goals: that it will create a deeper insight into the current challenges being addressed by the tourism and travel industry, that we'll gain a better understanding of the interrelationship between sustainable investment in the tourism industry and achieving the UNWTO Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, and finally, above all and most importantly, that it will facilitate and initiate useful discussions between tourism project owners and potential investors. If sustainability is the foundation for the tourism industry, then investment in the sector is what will make this goal possible and achievable. So today's conference will look at specific areas of investment and how this can facilitate growth and success. And to cover this topic in more detail, it's my pleasure to welcome the first keynote speaker to the stage, His Excellency Dr. Talib Rifai, the Chairman of ITIC and also former Secretary General of UNWTO, who is going to deliver the welcome speech. Thank you, Dr. Rifai.
Good morning. Thank you so much, everybody. My role is very simple. I need to welcome everybody here. I'm delighted to see all the beautiful and wonderful people that are in this room today. It's not the numbers, it's the quality of the people that I'm very proud of. But the numbers are good as well. So I'm very happy to see all of you here. Let me start by thanking our supporters. And then I'll go a bit into substance of why we're here today. I'll start by thanking Invest Saudi. Invest Saudi has been a great, great supporter of us. Ibrahim and I have been to Saudi Arabia with Gerald Lawless. Gerald is here. Yes, Gerald. And we are very, very proud of what's going on there. We're happy to see them with us today. And it's a great, great opportunity for us to cooperate. Thank you so much for being with us. We also want to thank St. Helena, the island of St. Helena, which is a very, very important theme in our conference today. We've concentrated on two things, on Africa in general and on the islands in particular. So St. Helena is a very, very good partner of us. I also want to send a very special thanks to the place we're in today, Intercontinental Park Lane. It's been extremely, extremely helpful. I want to thank each and every one of them here in this room, those that are not here. So Alvaro, Joseph, and Stephanie, thank you so much for all your help and your support. Without you, we would not have been able to get through. I also want to thank our Travel and Tourism Council. Gloria Rivara should have been with us. She's not feeling well and we should all the best. So please, thank you so much, Gloria, for supporting us. WTM is why we're all here. I know it's a bit difficult to come all the way where you are. Many of you have traveled so long. Being in London is very special. I always think of London as a space where tourism can be experimented at its best. Just think about it. In London, when you come to London, you become a Londoner yourself. You become used to things that you never do in your own country. Don't mind standing in line and waiting. Don't mind the weather. Those of you that don't know how to take public transportation, we do that in London. Because London is very special. It's the essence of what tourism is all about, really. In tourism, you should never change. You should always come to see you as you are. Londoners are excellent and perfect in doing that. So we're very proud to be here in London. I'm very, very happy that Christopher Rodriguez is with us today. Christopher is a man with a lot of energy to visit Britain. Now he's going into higher level of contribution to his own country. Thank you so much, Christopher, for being with us. Speaking of Christopher, I want to also have a special welcome to the gentleman sitting on the right, Christopher. Najib Balala is the Minister of Tourism of Kenya. Kenya is a wonderful place. Kenya is the heart of Africa. It represents everything that's so glowing, so energetic in Africa. You can't stay on your feet when you're in Kenya. Those of you that have visited Kenya would know this. In Kenya, you're always pushed to do better and go to higher levels. He's been keeping up with that. He's part of that as well. I welcome you here now. Congratulate you for being chairman of the UNWTO Executive Council now. Been elected, you're a pride of Africa, really. I can't say much more about it because we're good friends. And friends don't speak about each other. Najib, you're a good friend. Thank you so much for being with us. Speaking of Africa and islands, I also want to welcome Edmund Bartlett. Edmund Bartlett is a wonderful minister from Jamaica. Jamaica is a country, I think I lost mine though. Jamaica is a country that you should go and see. It's part of why we started to think about islands really, including them in our investment. He is heading now a very important project with the Center for Global Center for Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management. It's something that he'll talk about much more than I do. He's honored me to be with him managing this center. It's important because of what happened. Every year, the islands of the Caribbean experience very important challenges. We need to be living up to that challenge. And Edmund Bartlett is an example of a good minister. I've been in Jamaica 2 weeks ago, I think, right, Minister? You should see Edmund there. When he walks in the street, everybody comes to him, wants to take a selfie. He taps on people's shoulders, he hugs them. He's a good leader. That's what we should all be. Today, the world is suffering a lot from politicians not knowing how to connect with people. He's one that connects very well with everybody. With us also is Conradi Mizzi. Conradi is Minister of Tourism of Malta. Malta is another great example of an island country. It's making it very strong and strong. Conradi, I'm sure, will be in more prominent places as we move along. It's wonderful to be with us. Thank you so much. Malta, the good lady President of Malta, should have been with us. She's in Oxford today, but she sent greetings and she has a message, video message that we could deliver together. She was with us when we launched this event last year. This is the second event, but last year it was only the launch of it. Now Malta is a country that is playing its role in the Mediterranean, very, very effectively. Malta is the center of the Mediterranean is the center of the world, if you think about it. Everything that we live in today came from the Mediterranean. Democracy, all the principles that we're living in today came out of the Mediterranean. Trade, free trade, all the connecting elements of the world today started in the Mediterranean. Olympic Games, everything that we're living in today is affected by what's happening in the Mediterranean. The president there and Mr. Conradi are in charge of something called Mediterranean Tourism Foundation. It's a wonderful organization that's in charge of promoting peace and understanding. If we have peace around the Mediterranean, we'll have peace around the world. Just imagine, Southern Europe, north of the Mediterranean, Northern Africa, south of the Mediterranean, and East Mediterranean, Middle East, coming together, making something that is really viable. Much of the problems of the world today will be seen in a different light if we really can establish peace around the Mediterranean. There's much more that I can speak about, many people around here. I know each and every one of you so well. I don't think that Daniela would like it if I exceed my time, because I've already started 9:15 and I should have finished at 10. So you can imagine how difficult the job I have to do. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you, particularly Daniela. Jacobs and Travel Weekly, thank you so much, Daniela, for being with us. I think that would help me take another few minutes. Okay. Now, why is this meeting important? It's important because tourism is an important sector, under-recognized sector, very important sector. The very word tourism does not communicate lots of seriousness in the minds of people. Many people, when we talk about tourism, they think about long, blue-eyed people laying lazy on the beach, doing nothing. It's by far much more than this. You know that very well. Tourism is about 1 out of 10 jobs all over the world. 3.1 billion US dollars are spent every day by travel and tourism. 1 out of 10 jobs all over the world created by travel and tourism. But beyond these economic benefits, it's the third largest export industry in the world, after fuels and chemicals. Beyond that, the most important thing is shaping the world today, bringing people together. The more people travel, the better this world becomes. I always say, I travel the world, I'm a better person for sure. You start seeing people in different light. You start imagining things in a different way. I can tell you so many stories about my travel experience and how I can see people like real people. People as the way they are, all stereotypes break apart. If you go to any place, you have dinner with the people there. Listen to their stories, listen to their music, listen to their dreams, share it with them. You can never ever have negative feeling towards the people you visit. So the more people travel, the better this world becomes. And that's why Mediterranean Tourism Foundation, based in Malta, is very important, because it's bringing all the people together for peace and prosperity. I want to thank you very much, because this forum is an important introduction to WTM. I want to particularly thank Simon from WTM and all the people here representing WTM. Without you, we wouldn't have not been in London. Stephen knows this. But the important thing is that this meeting brings in investors and tourism people together in one forum. Investing in tourism, therefore, is not just a good and sound and intelligent business proposal. It's also investing in the future of this world. That's why investing in sustainable tourism is very important. Investing in peace, prosperity, and connecting people together. That's what you're doing. Your job is by far much bigger than just a cheap, good business proposal. I thank you all very much. I apologize, I took much more time than I would to. Welcome back. Thank you.
Personally, I think that Dr. Rifai has so many wonderful things to share with us that I would be happy to give him the whole morning. Thank you, Dr. Rifai. So it's now my pleasure to welcome onto stage another friend of mine, Professor Dimitris Proupalis, who is one of the shining lights that brings together academia and the travel industry in the UK, and he works tirelessly at that. He's from Bournemouth University and is going to share with us his vision of Tourism 2030. Is that right? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, good morning. Wonderful to see all of you. Great to speak after Taleb, and every time I hear Taleb speaking, I just get so much inspiration, and I go out and I say to my students, listen to this. Thank you. Ibrahim asked me to talk about investment in the future, and I know nothing about it. So like a good student, I change the assignment, basically, to something I can talk about. And what I can talk about is what's going to happen in 2030. And if you start thinking about it, and the connection with investment is, of course, if you know what's going to happen in 2030, you invest in the right places, right? Because quite a lot of, and you'll see that on the slides, quite a lot of people are investing on things that we were doing in the past. A selfie for my mom. Hashtag Bukharis. My mom is keep looking where I am. I just came back from China for 2 weeks. And I think those of you who are investing in the tourism industry, you need to see what is at the end of the tunnel. Where are we going? What's going to happen? When you look into the numbers, we'll have 8.5 billion people in the world in 2030. And 8.5, sorry, I just saw the number. And it's very interesting to see where the numbers are coming from. They come from Asia and they come from Africa. And that's why this conference is very interesting in a way when you concentrate on Africa, because the population will be increasing dramatically in Africa and Asia. You need to understand where the money is going to come from. And you can see China and you can see the United States, how they're growing their economies versus Europe. And also you can see the middle class growing very, very fast, which will provide a lot of people in the tourism industry, people who like to travel, and people who need to provide services too. Okay, I'll go back. I saw Minister Balala want to take a picture, so that time does not count to my thing, it's service to the Minister. So a lot of people don't realize that 2020 is 2 months away, and 2030 is 10 years away. And I keep saying to my students, because we have to prepare the new generation for 2030. Because by the time they graduate, it will be 2 or 3 years down the line, 7, 8 years to move forward to managerial positions. They'll be in charge in 2030. So my role is really to make them understand what 2030 is going to look like and prepare them to manage for 2030. 2020, 2030, it will change tourism industry dramatically. It will be a very, very different thing. And a lot of the things I'm going to show you, you will not like. I promise you that. I know Taleb will not like. Because they're a very different way of doing things from what we're doing. But I'll show you. Can we play this video? do. We still travel, we still try to connect, but the tools to do this will be significantly different. Is the tourism industry ready? We had a conversation on Wednesday about Thomas Cook, and everywhere you go, you're talking about Thomas Cook. And a lot of people are sad that we lost that kind of environment where people were going and they saying things. And we had in Bochum University one of the fantastic keynote speakers from the industry who was looking to all the reasons why Thomas Cook died. And one of the things is they didn't modernize enough. You know, they lost 3.1 billion pounds. It's not an easy thing to do. And the Brexit thing, which I have to say. Right? And what are we trying to replace Thomas Cook with? Same old, same old. Jet2, yeah? Jet2 became the number 2 biggest tour operator in this country, and it's actually accumulating a lot of the slots and a lot of the space capacity that Thomas Cook occupied. I think we need to start having a new approach to tourism, where you have got the tourists using technology to actually interconnect with everything that's happening around them and engage in a much more conversation and much more clever way with their environment. I'm talking about the real-time tourism and nowness. How do they operate in real time to bring together? If I can play this video for a few minutes. This is from Hangzhou. This is the Alibaba new futuristic hotel.
高经理，关闭窗帘。天猫精灵，打开电视。天猫精灵，
主人，你说。
我需要一瓶水。
好的，服务员会尽快送来饮用水。机器人正在执行配送任务中，进入电梯。
The self-check-in machine, like the guest mobile check-in, like the robot service and Timogenes voice butler. The purpose of this kind of service and technology is to improve the efficiency of the service and the consistency of the service quality.
The reason I'm showing that to you is because this is not something that's going to happen in the future. It happens already. And actually, this is me 2 weeks ago in Hangzhou at the New Century Grand Hotel with my best friend who was speaking all kinds of languages, could follow me 24/7. And the local Chinese receptionist couldn't understand housekeeping or cleaning my room for a long time. So a lot of people will jump on me and say, hey, you know, human touch and all the rest of it. But I think we really need to understand how technology and human need to work together to maximize the efficiency and create value. And this is not something that's going to happen in the future, it's happening now. And it's happening somewhere around us. Those of you who have been to some of my presentations before, you know my view on smart tourism. We create data, we analyze data, all the data goes up on the cloud, it's analyzed by artificial intelligence and machine learning. We understand what's happening there and then a storm of value comes down to the customer, and all of that comes back as a feedback. Now, this story has always been in tourism, but in the past, that will take 2-3 years. People are looking at tourism statistics, but they're looking to tourism statistics that they've been for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm not a historian, I'm a tourism management marketing person. I really want to see what's going to happen in 2 months, 3 months. How many people are going to be in Jamaica in 3 months' time? What's my occupancy level? What's the average room rate? What's the yield? How can I maximize that? And how can I use predictive technology to actually address the needs proactively, both at the micro level and at the macro level? This is something that we're spending quite a lot of time doing now. It's really understanding the now and collect all this data. You start with a trigger kind of real-time reaction. You understand what is happening for each individual, and you're coming back to them and you create value propositions. I'm under incredible time pressure, and Daniela says, so have a look on the paper because it explains that if you don't find it, let me know, I'll send it to you. That's my latest thing, ambient intelligence tourism, where customers are right in the middle, you've got all the tourism industry around them, and then you've got all kinds of technologies next to them. The Internet of Things, of everything, 5G, RFID, mobile operations, cryptocurrency, sensors and beacons, pervasive computing, gamification, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. All of those things are already in place What is not in place yet is the coordination between all those things, and this is what we are working on. Thank you very much. This is the publication that this is based on, so it's not just a story, and this is how you find me. No, you don't. Okay.
Thank you, Demetrius. I don't know whether to be terrified or enchanted by what you've just said, maybe both. But I'm sure that, are you going to share your presentations with everyone afterwards? I have used your presentations many times in the past. So we're going to move from looking at the future to looking at investment as a key driver of tourism growth. And to cover that topic for us, we have Mr. Christopher Rodriguez, WTTC Ambassador and Chairman of the Port Authority of London and general person who has helped to drive tourism development in the UK for the last 2 decades. Christopher, please come and join us on stage. Thank you so much.
Someone does not. You need them? I take them away. Morning. You might be wondering why a chairman of the Port of London is speaking at an investment conference in tourism, and I guess it's the backstory. As Daniela said, I've been in tourism for a considerable amount of time, of which more in a minute, and I now define my time in tourism as pre-Thomas Cook and post-Thomas Cook. A traumatic event, if you were once the chief executive of Thomas Cook when it was a successful business, before it invested crazily. Which is a point for a conference like this. This was misdirected investment. Put 1.3 billion into retail in the fastest disintermediating business in the world, and you are going to have a problem. Anyhow, enough of that. I imagine the ITIC organisers have chosen me to deliver a keynote address this morning because I may have had the longest experience in the travel industry in the world. May not be the oldest, but I started young. Put it another way, I have lots of scar tissue which may be relevant to you and you can learn from. I confess to having started to read French railway timetables at the age of 7. My parents, who were dancers in the Royal Ballet, were not into timetables. But I was, and I'd worked out the difference between up trains and down trains. For those of you less interested in timetable conventions, the up train goes towards a major city, for example Beijing, London, or in my example, Paris. Over the next 63 years, as a customer and practitioner in the tourism industry, I've seen an industry transformed. If you don't believe change is going to happen, try this. Transformed by changes in transport itself, from propeller planes to high-performance jets, from steam engines to high-speed trains, from transatlantic liners to river cruises. Transformed by changes in accommodation and hospitality, from utilitarian station hotels to boutique properties, from bed and breakfasts to Airbnb and its clones, from plain overcooked food to exotic food tourism. Transformed by changing rules and regulations, from national boundaries to common travel areas and visa-free travel, from minimal security to lockdown travel. Transformed by changes in consumer behaviour, from dependence on travel agents to online surfing, from destination centricity to experience junkies, and from ecological agnostics green warriors. And most important of all, the transformation of leisure travel from a rich man's privilege to a universal right which brings understanding and nurtures peace between nations. As Taleb has said, to our great benefit for a number of years. This explosion of international leisure travel, coupled with an exponential growth in business travel driven by globalization, has meant travel growth has regularly exceeded GDP growth, and in many countries the creation of a foundation domestic travel industry that is 4 or 5 times the size of the international market. We often talk about international, but my theory in most countries is if you don't have a sustainable domestic industry, you very rarely have anything to sell to overseas visitors. And as China has shown to great effect, tourism has shown its power to alleviate poverty by bringing employment to regions other industries cannot reach. No surprise then that WTTC statistics show tourism employment exceeding 12% of the global workforce and growing robustly. Of course, this growth has not been without its challenges. We have evident overcrowding in many top destinations. Visitors are being scared away by acts of terrorism and big city crime. Travel security has increased significantly, usually to the detriment of people's travel experience. And the wide-ranging environmental impacts of travel are now being questioned. So the challenge for those of us who are currently in or proposing to invest in this wonderful growth industry is to address the side effects of growth while enjoying the fruits of our labour. If we don't respond, we're sowing the seeds of our own destruction, partly because we're typically a collection of small businesses focused on immediate needs, and partly because tourism is remarkably underrepresented in many governments. Typically, if tourism has a voice at all, it belongs to a junior minister who is often not present at cabinet-level discussions. One of the lessons of some of the more far-sighted African nations is that that is not the case. They realise just how important it is, and the tourism minister, often linked with culture and ecological support, is around the table. But given that much of the support needed by the tourism industry lies outside the remit of most tourism ministers, the chances of having joined up government tourism policies are much reduced. And if I have learned one thing in 63 years, it is joined up is what works, and anything other than joined up does not work. Because perversely, there is clear evidence that sustainable growth is most likely to occur in those companies in which tourism policy is well coordinated within the government and between government and the private sector. The level of coordination that exists or can be created should be a key consideration for any prospective investor in a tourism business. Mexico under President Calderon was a prime example of coordination at work. Calderon put tourism on the G20 agenda and supported the convening of tourism ministers in the first T20 meeting. This was arguably the point at which we began to create a global voice for industry at the ministerial level. And I also want to recognise the work that WTTC and Taleb at UNWTO did to make this happen. Interestingly, although T20 members were competitors for global market share, they typically spent more time worrying about sharing best practice and collaboration than competition. Calderon, supported by Gloria Guevara, also insisted that his ministers committed to a joined-up domestic tourism policy. Progress. So having described where we are and how we got here, and the challenges this has created, where do we go from here? And I'd like to cover this under 4 brief headings: consumer trends, industry trends, policy trends, and global trends. Starting with consumers, I've seen one constant for more than 40 years. The tourism habit is literally a journey. Most tourists start by travelling in their own country, avoiding the need to wrestle with differences in language, culture, food, and drink. Their behaviour changes as their confidence grows. Soon they progress to group tours, still cocooned in the stress-reducing arms of a tour guide who speaks their language, seeing the sights within a bubble of like-cultured travellers who all speak the same language, and often still eating the same food of their home country. This is travel with a pretty strong umbilical cord. You can take selfies to prove you've been to the Eiffel Tower or to the Tower of London, but you haven't really been to Paris or London. The British travelled like this in the 19th century, where much of the world was painted pink. But to me, this is a fundamentally incomplete manifestation of the benefits of travel. You can see, but you don't have to touch or be touched by the real human differences between countries. As mass tourism took off after the Second World War, the first wave of Americans came to Europe. Initially to Britain, as they thought we spoke the same language. Thank you. Then came the Japanese tourists enjoying Japanese breakfast, not croissant, and following a tour guide holding a lollipop stick. And so on and so forth until the Asian century took off and Chinese visitors became ubiquitous, first in Southeast Asia and then further afield into Europe. Of course, as tourists become more experienced, they venture out without the comfort of an umbilical cord, helped in part by the unstoppable growth of English as the lingua franca of the 21st century world. And in time, a few travellers become explorers, so confident in their travel skills that they take the road less travelled to Mongolia or Ethiopia or Papua New Guinea. For me, the most interesting new challenge is how to respond to the experience-oriented travellers who are often, but not always, millennials. This group requires a delicate touch. They don't respond well to blanket marketing by travel vendors. They are children of the internet and they expect personalised engagement because they get it from other sectors. They want to be talked to as individuals. They expect you to know their backstory. And if you're a human being, strange to relate, they expect you to know more than they can find on the web. These people are looking for value added, which is relatively easy to provide if they are planning their first trip to Ethiopia, but harder if they're planning their 5th trip to London. Travel has been in the forefront of web-based disintermediation, outsourcing what was travel agent labour to willing customers on the back of prices that cut through the often incomprehensible pricing practices of the airline and hotel industries. Brands have always been important because they promise certainty. But here's a change. Monolithic global brands seem to defeat the central objective of travel, to broaden the mind. I remember back in the early days, the Intercontinental having a slogan, when you've seen one, you haven't seen them all. Is a Starbucks coffee in a foreign country really an overseas travel experience, or just a comforting extension of home? No surprise then that owners of big brands, particularly in hospitality, have been working hard to segment their product offering. Or that on the web, a brand like Mr. and Mrs. Smith can carve out a rapidly growing niche as a hotel curator rather than as a hotel operator. Interestingly, the arrival of niche curators means that small hotels or bed and breakfasts, which many people prefer, sorry guys, but which are difficult to find, suddenly become discoverable because there's an intermediate curator who discovers places for people like me. Back to Demetrius and the web world. Another place I expect to see more active development is a combination of experience-based travel with promotional priced hotel, rail and air offering. What has changed from conventional sales and promotional pricing? To me, the answer is clear. In the era of experience-led travel, the fact that I can get a cheap travel ticket from London to Munich on Lufthansa and a cheap hotel from Hilton is necessary but not sufficient for an enjoyable weekend break. I need a reason to go. I need a reason to go. A relevant experience for me. And that gets personal. My preference data becomes very valuable to those who collect it with my consent. A personal example may help to explain this insight. If you email me about a golf experience in Bavaria, it will go straight in the dustbin. Not because I dislike the vibe of Bavaria, but to me, an afternoon chasing a ball around a golf course is a waste of a good afternoon. It's personal. If you offer me tickets to the Bavarian State Opera, I'm your man. Who knows that? Lufthansa? No. Hilton Munich? No. Someone who tracks what I read? More likely. Someone I've dealt with before who specializes in opera-rated travel? Absolutely. If you're investing in tourism development, you need to know where your customer is coming from and what experiences move them. Because in the world of experience-based travel, the person who knows what you'd like to do can send you an irresistible experience idea. And if an airline or hotel company partners with the experience expert, I predict better load factors and better occupancy rates. Of course, airlines and hotels can do the same thing using their frequent traveller data, if they collect the right data. Some are beginning to realise the power of what they've got. By now, I hope you're getting the point. In a fragmented industry, the winners will use data to become joined up. The same is true for governments. Let's look at some examples. In the 10 years I chaired Visit Britain, the British National Tourism Agency, I had 19 ministers and secretaries of state. We became quite good at briefing them. But with a couple of exceptions, getting government support was always difficult. The government perception was that the industry moaned a lot about departure taxes and the difficulty of getting planning permission. This, by the way, is not a uniquely British experience. In large economies where tourism is not the primary economic activity of the country, tourism often floats beneath the surface. Sometimes tourism has to stop to be noticed. The best UK example of this was during the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in Cavan. People literally stopped travelling to Britain and in Britain. Small travel tourism businesses went bust, and the survivors stopped spending on anything discretionary. Everything from bakers to plumbers felt the heat. But turning off the tourism tap to to get the point over can't be the answer. We have to be positive. When we told David Cameron that over 30% of the new jobs in Britain between 2009 and 2012 came from tourism, he got the point. Tourism's great strength is its employment multiplier per pound of tourism spend. I'm reminded of my appointment interview with Tessa Jowell, the late and wonderful Tessa Jowell, Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, note in a country in which tourism is one of the biggest service industries we have. Tourism is not even in the ministry's title. But the Secretary of State asked me how we should measure success, and I answered like a tourism professional. Heads in beds, bums in seats, and feet through the turnstiles. She liked that. And so did I. It's nice to have a new minister appreciating what you say. Until 18 months later, when I realised what a stupid answer it was. Because the three metrics that matter to government were jobs, jobs, and jobs. And after that, regeneration and taxes. Few taxes, let's face it, are more efficient to collect than airport departure tax. The key learning was that what mattered to government was not necessarily what mattered to the industry. And it was the industry that needed to change its tune. Visa regimes also matter. When you impose or remove a visa regime, it moves the dial on inbound tourism owners. Unless your visa processes are efficient, travel intermediaries give up and send people elsewhere. The Australians are world class at getting this right. They also understand the need to market destinations to frontline agents. Inexperienced agents dealing with inexperienced travellers about a destination they don't know about is not a recipe for success. Too often nations believe their own familiarity with the geography and attractions of their country is matched by the understanding of the target market. It isn't. In this respect, major events work in your favour, as Japan is demonstrating right now with the Rugby World Cup, and I believe will do with the Olympics in 2020. As China knows from the Beijing Olympics, the trick is to realise that inbound travel volumes will typically drop before a major event. Non-Games travellers decide they should try another country that year. And business travel disappears in the host city, apart from host companies bringing people to the Games. Why would you hold a business meeting in the middle of a sporting event? The real opportunity lies after the Games, when you invite people to visit the country they've seen on TV. For investors, finding a way to get your new destination onto travellers' must-visit list is critical and not easy. It's not happenstance that the old investment mantra is never be the first investor in a major capital project. And never underestimate the power of a weak currency to attract travellers. I'd like to tell you all the results in Britain are due to the extraordinary work done by the team at Visit Britain and the leadership of its chair. 240 to 120 works, at least in the eyes of Americans, with just half the price of visiting the UK. Finally, let me turn to two external factors to which the industry needs to respond: over-tourism and the environment. The over-tourism problem is driven both by destination popularity and by the failure of local governments to merchandise the benefits of tourism to local residents. In popular destinations, you need to engage in a dialogue about the right balance between local needs and tourism growth. Local authorities have tough decisions about the extent and methods by which they manage growth. Philosophically, I have a problem about turning cities such as Venice into an exclusive playground for the rich by introducing admission fees and rapacious accommodation pricing. But unless there is some form of hypothecated tax used to make infrastructure investments that are valued by the community, this is what may happen. Make no mistake, over-tourism is a grenade with the pin already halfway out. When cruise ships arrive in Venice that are significantly taller than almost every building, they are seen by residents as a threat equal to the historic arrival of the Ottomans at the city gates. One solution that is receiving insufficient focus is the combined potential of an ageing Western population with the marketing of off-peak travel. Families beyond child-raising years have the ability to take advantage of shoulder season prices and attractions. Relatively few destinations have really mastered this opportunity, and yet it is growing significantly. It allows you to spread the visitor load across the year. Finally, let me turn to the essential matter of the environment and our responsibility to act. I've watched the journey from disbelief and disinterest to engagement and involvement. The early breakthroughs came when the airline industry realised they had almost missed the turning point in public tolerance for exhaust gas emissions, and when hoteliers realised that sustainable wastewater treatment and sewage disposal was good economics as well as good for the environment. Consumer demand for sustainable tourism is now approaching a level where those who act accordingly will secure a competitive advantage of those who don't. And those not motivated by marketing advantage consider the rapid advance of regulation, which is going to hit this industry much more than many people predict. As an example of why I believe that to be true, the Mayor of London has recently introduced an ultra-low emission zone that will transform the use of low-emission vehicles in London within the next 10 years. The significant point is, although it will affect every household that has a car in London, and there are many, there has been no material resident pushback against this initiative. It's clear to me, and more importantly to many others, that sustainable tourism is an idea whose time has come. Tourism leaders must commit to contributing towards a sustainable future or face the consequences as accelerating regulation. I hope you choose to invest thoughtfully. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing those words of wisdom with us. We now have one more introductory comment before we go on to our first panel session, and I'd like to invite Mrs. Tiffany Mizrahi, who is the Vice President of Policy for the World Travel and Tourism Council, to share her views with us. Thank you.
I'm not as tall as Alex, I'm different than that. And you may have noticed and deduced from the program that I'm not Gerald Lawless, but I will do my very best. My name is Tiffany Mizrahi. I'm the Vice President of Policy at the World Travel and Tourism Council, and I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about global tourism trends and Africa more specifically. Great. So quickly before I jump in, just tell you who we are, and you've obviously met one of our great ambassadors just now, Christopher Rodriguez and Gerald Lawless. But we're the body representing the global travel and tourism private sector. WTTC has 170 plus members who are the chairs, CEOs, and presidents of the biggest travel and tourism companies in the world. We've been doing research for over 30 years, looking at quantifying the impact of the travel and tourism sector across the world. Ultimately, we want to speak with one voice, and we want to ensure the sustainable and inclusive growth of the travel and tourism sector. You've already heard from Professor Bujales and Mr. Christopher Rodriguez some of the big trends that are out there, and I'll try to take a different outlook. We did a body of work with Bloomberg Media Group earlier this year to look at what were the big trends transforming our world. And we noticed the scale, scope, and complexity that is ultimately transforming humanity as we know it. These megatrends present tremendous opportunities for those who recognize them and seize them. I'll quickly highlight them to you now, and then we'll go in a bit more depth. The first is reality enhanced, life restructured, data revolutionized, power redistributed, and consumption reimagined. Lots of infographics for you. Today's experience-driven world is fueled by a desire for personal enrichment, self-direction, and communities. New ideas and beliefs are emerging on how to best lead a connected life, and disruption is ceasing to be the holy grail of what technology can offer. Rather, individuals, communities, and organizations are looking to technology to enhance human nature and analog experience. Let me highlight to you a few numbers. 8.2 trillion, that is the forecasted global expenditure on the experience economy by 2028. Half of that, 4.2 trillion, will be spent on the wellness economy. 55% of US millennials report spending more on live events and experiences than they were in the past. Life restructured. The gig and sharing economies are redefining relationship, they're disrupting industries, and creating new expectations for work and for life. You'll notice in terms of numbers that affluent millennials, 63%, value their time over money. 74% value intangibles over material possessions. And interestingly, 50% of the workforce in the US will be freelance by 2027. I could spend about an hour on these, but I have 10 minutes to go through everything. The third is data revolutionized. Data through the Internet of Things and machine learning has become a driving force of the global economy. It's leading to unprecedented personalization and connectivity. At the same time, however, it is making individuals and organizations more vulnerable. And organizations and individuals will be challenged to navigate these new opportunities and the liabilities associated to them. The numbers are humongous. 180 zettabytes will be generated by 2025. That is more than 3 times the current volume. 57 billion will be spent on AI by 2021, and 57% of consumers have said that they will share data, and this is globally, not just for travel and tourism, will share their data in exchange for personalized offers and discounts. Power redistributed. Power and demographic shift from west to east and south, from nations to cities, are redefining centers of influence, while at the same time we've heard that individuals are increasingly mobilizing and demanding accountability. You will see that the emerging markets will become the new leaders of the global economy by 2050, and that 5.6 billion people will be living in cities by 2035. Finally, environmental threats and challenges are intensifying, and no one is spared. The durability of existing models is called into question, with the private sector facing increased pressure and scrutiny. This also applies to the public sector. And despite increasing accountability, individuals and organizations are struggling to balance long-term sustainability with short-term priorities. We heard in the population growth numbers. By 2050, the global population will exceed 9.7 billion people. At the same time, consumption of natural resources will triple. While we are hearing of adages, more and more people saying that they want to consume sustainable products, between 30 and 50%. Less than 5% of global sales today are of sustainable products. So what are some key takeaways and how can we apply them to our sector? For reality enhanced, go beyond your core offering to ensure that you have the product and services that deliver personal betterment and unlock new ways of experiencing the world. For life restructured, rethink accepted construct around business and leisure and create offerings that address the traveler's full range of integrated needs, behaviors, and aspirations. When it comes to data, make data count with a reward that far outweighs the risk. Leverage emerging innovation with big data, machine learning, and IoT to deliver extraordinary functionality and a frictionless customer experience. For the power redistributed, future-proof your business by creating offerings tailored to the behaviors and underlying needs, motivations, and challenges of the middle class emerging in China, India, Africa, and beyond. For consumption reimagined, ensure that sustainability is not merely a marketing tactic, but it is core to your growth strategy and to your vision. Consumers are demanding it, and the long-term success of our planet depends on it. So, before I move on to Africa very quickly, I'll just give you the big numbers of the travel and tourism sector, the WTTC has done. 10.4% of the global economy, the travel and tourism accounts for 10% of the contribution to the global GDP, 1 in 10 jobs on the planet, and in the last 5 years, 1 in 5 of all new jobs were created by the travel and tourism sector. But you're not here to talk about the world, you want to hear about Africa. So there we go. So travel and tourism contributes $194 billion to the continent's GDP, 24.3 million jobs. It has a 5.6% growth, which is higher than global growth, and has welcomed, we're talking about 2018 figures, 67 million international arrivals. The breakdown between domestic and international is 56 to 44%, and the breakdown between leisure spending and business spending is 70 to 30. I thought I would share with you, there we go, the top 10 destinations in Africa, and I mean top 10 by their contributions to GDP, not in terms of international visitor numbers. You notice South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, Algeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Tunisia, and Cote d'Ivoire. For Africa, the travel and tourism sector accounts for 10% of global GDP. And while Morocco is a bit further down the line, the sector accounts for 19% of the country's GDP. You may wonder which visitors spend the most in African countries. And interestingly, as you look across these three countries, which are just examples, China is the red thread that goes across. Similarly, when thinking about where Africans spend their tourist money, you'll notice that China, India, and the US are the three red threads that we're seeing so far. Africa has tremendous opportunity for growth. We estimate 4.2% growth in the next 10 years. That's faster than the global economy. We expect the travel and tourism sector to create 8 million new jobs by 2029, a $50 billion investment, and a doubling of international arrivals by 2030. There is tremendous potential. Still, to be able to achieve that potential, it's very important for Africa to grow in a sustainable and inclusive way. And here are 4 elements that Africa and the rest of the world, island states as well, should really need to think of to ensure their future success. Prioritize connectivity within and beyond the continent, access as well as security. People's safety comes first. Build resilience, and you'll probably hear more from Minister Bartlett later today about that, and definitely next week at the Global Resilience Summit. Protect your product, and by that I mean your natural and cultural assets. And finally, make sure that travel and tourism doesn't just benefit a few, but benefits the entire community in which you operate. That is essential. Wishing Africa and the rest of the world all the success in the world to drive tourism growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you for sharing so much interesting information. Again, the presentations will be shared by the speakers. So we're going to change the format slightly now, and I'm going to welcome my longtime friend and colleague, Rajan Datar, to the stage. Rajan is presenter and broadcaster for the BBC, and also has moderated many international conferences around the globe. He's going to introduce his panel and do the first panel session, and he's also going to be with us many times today, so effectively he will be one of the people to pull together the overarching themes of the conference. Thank you, Rajan.
Right, number one, is this microphone working? Very good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Daniela, for bringing me on. Now then, the point of this session is to give some pointers from the people who really know about this stuff, to learn how, from the perspective of experienced project owners and investors, what the best way is to proceed in order to secure affordable funding and how to deal with the inevitable challenges that they'll be presented with along the way. Just on a personal note, as a journalist and broadcaster specialising in travel, I've seen how the climate and conditions for successful tourist projects have evolved. From the consumer's point of view, I've seen changing demands in the types of resorts, hotels, and other accommodation, the effect, obviously, of the internet on the market, the rise of boutique-style properties, the Airbnb revolution, the need for sustainability and community buy-in, and And then it's interesting, looking at the 2030 predictions, you can tell consumers will take no crap. They lead the way. They are the ones. And I like the idea of curators. I think that's going to happen much more, Christopher. I think, yes, you are going to get travel curators, just like you are in other sorts of media or whatever else. They're going to be guiding you because there's so much choice. You need guidance. So, when it comes down to the essential nitty-gritty of investment, I think the same factors, however, will pertain. You need to be able to register your business in a foreign country in a straightforward manner. You need to know if there are financial and tax incentives for investors, and if it's easy to repatriate your profits. You need to know if there are limits on foreign ownership. You need to know about the existing infrastructure. You need to know about trains, airports, motorways, all that stuff. Smart cities, digitalisation. You need to know there's no corruption. You need to know what your return on investment is. And you need a good local pool of well-educated and trained personnel. And it's the destination marketing. But all these things might seem obvious, but guess what? You'd be surprised how often they're not adhered to. They're not there. And all of this stuff is going to be taken into account by my extraordinarily smart and experienced panel. They know all the ins and outs of this game, and they'll give their perspectives. So let me bring them on stage. Can I first bring on Mr. Joseph Knoll from Towerbrook? There he is, coming from the back. Previously, Mr. Knoll was a director of York Capital, where he was head of European restructurings. Prior to joining York, he was the founding member, let me correct me if I'm wrong, of the principal investing group of Morgan Stanley. Very good. And there's a mission statement on his website, and I just want to quote it. Our mission is to deliver superior risk-adjusted returns to our investors on a consistent and responsible basis. Looking further ahead, it's possible that the corporate world could evolve into values-based and principles-based long-term thinking based on creating shared value. Correct? Very good. And what you're basically saying is greenwashing. You don't like greenwashing, do you? You don't like the idea of people just talking about it. You want people to do it. You like action. Very good. Take a seat. Also, Ms. Angela Chen, Vice President of the Dossen Group. Now, in the recent past, the Dossen Hotel Group has signed a number of project agreements with investors from Seoul, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They signed a deal to manage the Marriott Fairfield brand in China. You serve as Global Head of Corporate Affairs, and that's for the group, which I think is the 5th ranked hotel group in China? 14th. 15th of the world hotel groups. Yes, okay. Now, you are looking for global expansion, and using Chinese capital. Is that right? We'll talk about that more. And I think you're one of the first companies really to counter the prevailing trend of international groups coming into China and using it as you're going out. Very good. Take a seat. Thank you very much. Marcus Lee, who is chairman of the China Small and Medium Enterprise Business Owners Association. You were appointed Sun Samoa Prime Minister Special Envoy in China. We're going to talk more about the island stuff in a minute. You began your career in Wall Street. Bit of success, aren't you, really? Your firm is a coordinator for China Pacific Tourism Year 2019. And you read a book called How to Outsmart China. We've got a couple of guest special appearances in a minute, well not in a minute, but half an hour. But I want to start with a short presentation by Mr. Lachezar Todorov, CEO of Terra Tour Service. Now, they are investors and developers. They're based in Bulgaria, but you're going to now give us your recent experience of venturing out into the East Caribbean to San Lucia and to Tanzania.
Good morning and thank you all. It's a pleasure to be at this conference today and to have the opportunity to present ourselves as a company and also as future investors in the areas of the amazing parts of the world that are the topic of our conference today. Okay, so top presentation, it will make it just shorter. First, a few words about Terra Tour. Terra Tour is a private Bulgarian company which was established 20 years ago. So for the last 20 years, we have grown quite considerably, with 5 properties today in Bulgaria on the Black Sea coast and one hotel to be opened next year, hopefully in the first quarter in the capital city of Sofia. So with about 2,700 hotel units in the country, with more than 700,000 bed nights realized in 2019, and looking forward to turnover of over 40 million US in 2020, it was the decision of the owner and of the management of the company to start growing and expand overseas. So we've looked in different areas of the world, and finally we've decided that it's a good opportunity to try to invest in 2 very separate but geographically 2 very common in a way part of the world, that's Tanzania and St. Lucia. So in Tanzania, I have to admit that originally we looked at Zanzibar as the apparent choice of a company coming from a vocational background. But then came around the opportunity of looking into the national parks, and specifically the so-called Northern Circuit. So we have offers from TANAPA, which is the Tanzanian Authority of National Parks, to construct lodges and permanent tented camps in the 3 important parks of Serengeti, Tarangire and Manyara. How does the process work? It is pretty well explained by the authorities in the Development Action License procedure. So you're supposed to develop a business plan and a development prospectus. As part of the development prospectus comes the concept design. So what we did as a company, we established an international tender where a number of designers from the UK, but also from South Africa, from Tanzania itself, participated. So we have developed the concept design of the 3 lodges. We have tried to implement as much as possible local materials to try to stick into the environment of what we have there as nature. It's beautiful out there. We were very lucky and we get the support of the authorities. So we managed to choose in the 3 parks amazing sites with fantastic views and with this unforgettable and memorable experience of the African sunset. We're at the stage when the concept design is already developed. We are to produce the development plans to TANAPA and expect to receive the licenses early next year, where we hope to start the construction of the lodges and of the tented camp. It's all scheduled to open between 2023 and 2024. What I need to say is that we have tried to create as much as possible, like our previous speakers spoke about, we have tried to create as much as possible unforgettable experiences for our future clients. So a lot of emphasis was placed not only on the facilities themselves, but also on the additional experiences like the spa facilities, like also creating the opportunity for an educational and learning centers where people would be able to interact more closely with the nature and what Tanzanian authorities and the government do for the preservation of the wilderness. Some key figures, because the panel is all about the investments expectations, so I will jump on to the quick financial data. These are our expectations, and we hope that they will be achieved. With 350 beds in these 2 lodges and 1 tented camp, with an estimated investment of about 65 million US. The expectation is to achieve a stabilized EBITDA of 14 million US per year, which would give us about 18% of IRR on the project as a whole. For anybody who is interested in more details, I am happy to share them. Advantages and disadvantages, they pretty much are the same between the countries. I do need to point out that we have got all the support that we needed from the authorities in the realization of the project so far. There is an investment agency which is called the Tanzanian Investment Center, which is actually the one to guide the foreign investors throughout the process. It is pretty much straightforward, the registration of the local company. There are practically no unsurmountable difficulties and obstacles in working in Tanzania. Bank and banking system is quite well developed, although the services are still at the normal basic level of banking services. As disadvantages, what we can point out, apart from the fact that being positioned in the national parks and having all the restrictions, both on the investment side but also on the operation of these businesses, there is a little bit of a challenge in the import of materials, both for the construction and then later on for the operation of the hotels. I do need to point out that we consider the corporate tax of 30% to be a little bit steep, but that's the way it is, and we do hope that with the business that we're going to grow there, it's going to be also obtainable. A few words about St. Lucia, moving to the other area, to the island nations. Beautiful island, world famous with pitons. We have managed to secure a land plot, again, with the help of their investment agency, Invest St. Lucia, a land plot in the southern part of the island. This is part of the government program to develop the southern tip of the island, which at the moment is a little bit underdeveloped. So we bought the land plot under the condition that a four-star resort is going to be developed there. The government of St. Lucia has a very clear image and a very clear tourist-related program. Tourism is a priority one for them as a sector of the national economy, and hence we receive a lot of support both from the investment agency, as I said, Invest St. Lucia, but also from the other authorities. Once again, a pretty easy registration of the company there, no obstacle as far as the visas are concerned. Fantastic tourism-related and investment-related concessions and tax benefits which can be given from the Council of Ministers, provided that the investor shows that his policy is aligned with what the government believes should be the development of St. Lucia. The plan for us to develop a 350-unit resort there with a section for adults only, but also for families, the relevant number of restaurants, the relevant number of swimming pools. It's quite a big land plot. What we have there, a fantastic opportunity. What I wanted to stress out is that we are very privileged as part of the land plot itself. We have Mangrove Lagoon, which is going to be integrated in the resort. It's actually going to be as one of the additional features and benefits of the resort for our guests to enjoy. Again, going quickly to the basic financials, 345 rooms, as I said, 200,000 bed nights per year. The total investment is estimated at $150 million US. Stabilized revenue is expected to be 65 million, with an EBITDA of 18 million, giving you about 12% project IRR. Again, happy to share the additional data with everybody who is interested. Thank you so much. If there are any other questions, happy to answer.
Just following up on that, I'm really interested in the process. First of all, when did the idea come to you and your colleagues, hang on, we want to expand from Bulgaria, because you're doing very well in Bulgaria, to other parts of the world? What was that process about?
Well, as I said, kind of it was the natural decision to be taken because we have grown as much as we could grow in Bulgaria. So definitely we needed to look at expansion abroad if we decided to stay in tourism. We do believe in tourism as a sustainable business and as a business that can bring benefits to the company and also to the nations and to the countries where it is being developed. So while it took us about 2 years, I have to admit, that it wasn't an easy process, and we had to look into different opportunities and possibilities before we decided on these two projects.
So there must have been other places where you could have invested, other competition. What clinched it with these two places? If you had to name one factor that clinched it for St. Lucia, that clinched it for Tanzania, what were they?
I have to say that, to begin with, we were definitely looking at places where we could operate for 12 months. What needs to be said about Bulgaria is that our summer tourism is a seasonal job, so we do understand the difference between a seasonal place and a 12 months destination. So we were looking at 12 months destinations. What really clinched it is the unique opportunities that we got. To have a facility in Serengeti National Park, that's an amazing opportunity. And well, of course we had our doubts, of course we had our fears, and we still realize that it's a challenge and it's a lot of risk, but the support from the local people and the support from the local authorities practically was the decisive factor in both of these destinations.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, let me move to you. Can you just explain, first of all, how your company operates and what you look for?
Sure. We're a private equity fund. We're about 13 billion of assets under management. We do minority and majority equity. Hospitality space, we look all over the map. I think the IRRs that you mentioned are the sweet spot. I think we're more towards 18 versus 12, but that being said, maybe I think that's resonates with a lot of people, but I think IRRs are really dependent on risk. And as you go more off-piste or what's more off-piste to a North American or European investor, those IRRs start to go up a little bit. And I think, just what you said is very impressive. A lot of the issues that we come into when we hear pitches like that is you've been successful in, say, Bulgaria, you're now going to a different region where you already have experience building and doing a lot of things, but you're now, every region, what we found across the globe, no matter where, has its own specialities and things that can come up which are very specific to that region. So it's really, how do you go about convincing an investor like myself or anybody that that's not going to come up? I think what we're seeing a lot of the bridge between that is people saying, hey, we are partnering with a local partner that will help us in this region. Or we have so many local people who are working for us that, that's a difficult that we've seen come across the board, because at the end of the day, going to a new region is almost like starting a new company.
And let's talk about the environmental aspects. I mean, that is kind of in the DNA of what I'm getting now. So what does that actually mean in practical terms when you're looking at potential investment?
I think we definitely, the whole past hour has been very eye-opening for anyone whose eyes weren't open already. The disintermediation that's going on is, from a technology standpoint, but also from a sustainability standpoint, is definitely real. I think TowerBrook, from a corporate perspective and from a firm perspective, we really have realized this many years ago. We recently become a B Corp, which, if anyone doesn't know, is an accreditation that started in the States but now is global, which basically says that we not only believe in value for our investors, but we have to marry value with values. So from our perspective, we really look to say, is this going to be A, on the right side of history, which is the disinformation and the sustainability, and then B, if it is, are the people behind it going to be the people we want to work with, and 3 is sustainability is just the bedrock and the foundation of what we think is the right side of history. So the presentation that said 2030, I think, obviously we all know when 2030 is, but I think what was really hammering is it's in 10 years, right? 2030 sometimes seems like this science, crazy out there number, but it's 10 years out there. And when you're investing in a property or a company, usually our whole period is anywhere between 5 and 8 years. That's 2030, right? So, and then we're, by the way, looking to sell that property to somebody else or that investment to someone else, and they're going to have to be looking at 2030 to 2040. So for us, that definitely the sustainable nature of it has to be there, because we just think if you aren't in that sustainability and you're on that right side of the space right now, when you go to sell or when you go to try to crystallize your investment, you're going to have a much harder time.
And apart from the environmental issues, where do you think are the biggest stumbling blocks? If you're looking at a potential investment on behalf of your investors, if you're looking at somewhere, where does it so commonly fall down?
Well, I think one is obviously people are paramount and come first. You have to really have belief in who you're dealing with as a partner, their ability I think the next is a lot of the issues you mentioned in your introductory speech. You know, especially when you're going off-piste, and I say off-piste not in a derogatory way, but you know, if you're going across what people consider Main Street right now, where they've invested a lot of money in North America, a lot of money in Europe, when you're going towards you know, the African region or any of the islands, you really have to make sure that, you know, everything that you discussed, the visas, tourism, the government, is really lockstep in the belief that this is a good idea. Because at the end of the day, you can build this beautiful magic place, in the most beautiful place. If everything doesn't work and you can't get, I mean, I think you mentioned bums in the seats, then you really you have a white elephant, which is beautiful, but it doesn't really work. So you really just having the harmony of everything that you mentioned before is integral to having any investment.
The amount of research that goes into making sure all those factors are there.
Almost more than whether our partner can build the infrastructure that they're doing. That I think you get confidence in, especially if they've done before. Everything else is you have to do much more research because that's really where it can fall over.
Okay, let's turn to you, Angela. I mean, you are now, the hotel group is now looking outwards to the rest of the world. It has been for a while. Number one, what is the climate, do you think, for tourism investment? Just generally, is it positive? Oh, you might have that one, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, may I just give a little introduction of my group to let the audience to know better understand our global strategy. Our Chinese hotel group called Dosan, we got 2,500 hotels in over 200 cities in mainland China and also in some Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Malaysia, Burma, etc. And we got 30 million loyalty members. Every year, we are a very fast-growing company. Every year, recently we signed about 600 contracts. Every year, we open nearly 300 hotels every year. And now, our ambition is not only in China, but also want to go overseas, especially at this climate is that the Chinese outbound tourism is booming. And just for last year, there are around 140 million Chinese outbound tourists going all over the world, and we know what Chinese tourists, what kind of hotels their needs, their demands. We also want to get our hotels abroad to accommodate the Chinese tourists or the Asian tourists.
And I know this has been an issue for a while now, but in terms of what Chinese tourists want, what specifically are you talking about?
First of all, the Chinese tourists, most of them, their English is very limited. They would like the Mandarin, greeting, and some not only Chinese but also Asian people that are kind of shy, and they like your nationality, their staff can speak Chinese, and also especially for the stomach, we call Chinese stomach. They are very stubborn stomach. They like the Chinese food. We want the hot food. Not every time they go to European or US other countries, they hate icy water. We don't like icy things. We think that's very harmful for our body. We like warm porridge and Chinese food, Chinese cuisines. That's one of that.
Now, is that still going to be true of the next generation of Chinese tourists? Do you think they're going to be less needy for home comforts?
It depends. For some Chinese that since they travel more and more, and they now adjust the Western lifestyle, they can, but still some will still, we are raised in this Asian Chinese culture, still have this such needs.
So where have you been looking? Where have you actually decided to start hotels? Just give me some illustrations of what you're doing.
Actually, now we already got several hotels open in Southeast Asia because they are close to China. We have much easier also because there are a lot of Chinese in Southeast Asia. They stay in our hotels in China. They know our company very well. They would like to work with us to develop Chinese hotels in Southeast Asian countries.
What about Africa? What about the Caribbean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We see a lot of opportunities in the mature market like US, European, and we also see a dramatic rise for Chinese tourism. They go to other destinations like Africa, like Latin America, and also like Antarctica, or this kind of real and immersive market we are looking at. Actually now we got several projects on discussion in this emerging markets.
And just lastly with you, would you say that your demands, your return on investment, your desire for infrastructure to be good, local population, resources, are they the same as Joseph's or Legislative? Are they the same thing, or are they different criteria?
So you mean?
When you're looking abroad, are you looking for exactly the same things as any other investing group, basically?
Actually, for our global strategy to extend globally, actually there are three perspectives we lies on. The first one is, as I mentioned, the outbound tourism. We follow where the Chinese tourists, outbound tourists go in this to do destination. The second one is about the country, the geopolitical situation and the country risk. For example, last week, me and my friend, Mr. Ding Li, we with the Chinese investor delegation, we are here in London. We met with the former Prime Minister, Mr. David Cameron, and also Theresa May, and they want to attract with us to invest in UK. This is the golden area of the Chinese-UK relationship, and most of our Chinese delegation, were very concerned about Brexit, the uncertainty. So there are a lot of hesitations, although they trying to say how great it will be here.
The slight irony that David Cameron was there persuading you that...
He even had to sell his wife's shop, design shop. Asked us to go shopping in his wife's fashion shop.
Okay, so that's obviously a negative.
Oh yeah. We want some stable country. Yeah, stable.
Okay. Yeah, right. Christopher, you and I are going to have to do something about it.
Oh, okay. Actually, the last but not least, we are always trying to naturally when you go to a new area, as you said, as mentioned, if you go to developing a new area, just like start a new company, we really need to find a very good, trusted local partners.
Right.
I already got partners in US, in Germany, and in Southeast Asia. If we go to new area, new countries to develop our business, we need to choose the right person, the right company.
And again, how much research are you doing? How are you finding those right people? How do you find them?
Abraham helped. Also, there is that Mr. Lawless. Yeah, they give a lot of very good advice, and I trust them. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Over to you, Marcus. Now you are a kind of doyen in this subject. You know what you're talking about. You are the expert. How's it going for you? What do you think the climate is like right now? And also for your members, what's the situation?
Good morning, everyone. I need to take the liberty of 1 minute to explain what China SME Business Owners Association is. SME in China not so small. We don't sell pizza. I explained that in Bulgaria, I think. From our association perspective, minimum starting point is 30 million annual net profit. Yeah, starting point. Okay, you got the picture now. So we have 11,000 corporate members, 11,000 companies built over the past 17 years. So I'm a retired banker. I used to work in Wall Street and then too much hectic, you know. So I got moved back to Shanghai, and then I did the largest IPO for the small cap of China Nasdaq, and make that gentleman the richest man that year. He was doing Eyes Hospital. He's still in Forbes list right now. So now you got a big picture. So coming back, I arrived 3 hours ago from Shanghai. So I was drinking 2 cups of coffee to answer some questions from Raja Datan. So his question just asked about how I look at the situation right now. I think Dawson Group is a good example. How China outbound investment in tourism is in 3 stages. Stage 1, we go abroad to acquire brands. You're not the first. Look at Ctrip. They bought Skyscanners 2 years ago. They bought Make My Trip in India. By the way, I spent 1 month in India last month, so everything was years ago. And then we are doing the largest, we are doing 3 conferences for India next month, bringing 600 delegates. So it's India. We follow where the Chinese government go to, because President Xi just went to India last month, sorry, a few weeks ago. So next year is the year of India for us. So coming back to the stage 1 is China's go abroad to acquire brands.
Everywhere. I was responsible in the past 24 months to spend 150 million in the South Pacific Islands, which we will discuss in the afternoon panel discussion, where my Samoa work start. Samoa, anyone know where Samoa is? Okay, if you watch the movie The Rock in Hollywood, that's where he came from. So when I first arrived there, it looks like Jurassic Park, but I know Chinese is good investing a lot right now in the whole entire South Pacific. In Papua New Guinea alone, they spent 4 billion. So anyway, that's afternoon session. The stage 2 of China's investment, after we acquire brands, is to bring back to China and localize it. For example, you know Fosun. Fosun is, the owner is the richest man in Shanghai. So he brought back like Folly. He brought in Atlantis Hotel. Example, he bought Club Med. So those are localization. Stage 3, which is not happening so much yet, is China export our brands abroad. That's eventually, like Huawei. So thanks to Donald Trump, I think China economy is moving faster than 2030. We are slowly taking over the US economy. I wrote a book on how to outsmart China 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was an investment banker. In that book, specifically mentions 2030, China overtake America. But I think the time is getting faster now.
There you go. I'm interested as well, and I'm going to come to some other people in a second, but I think foreign direct investment has grown massively over the last 30 years. It's become the major source. But it means that you're in it for the... Does that mean you are looking at the day-to-day running? You're looking at all the minutiae, the detail, all the time?
I think even for someone like myself, who typical private equity firms still have somewhere from a 5 to 8 year time horizon. There are some now long-term funds who are 10 to 20 years, which is becoming more prevalent, but still a minority. Even on a long-term basis, we have to take that view. I mean, when you're building something, when we look to sell, again, even in 5 to 8 years, we say, okay, how's this going to perform the next 20, 30 years? So which, again, goes back to sustainability. I think sometimes sustainability has a connotation of ecotourism, which is not. It's really, has to sustain itself, one, for, again, as we spoke before, technology, and two, is how to sustain itself just on, reduce plastic, reuse water, things of that nature, right? So again, for us, even though it's more of a short-term perspective, 5 to 8 years, we have to look at the next 30 years as how that asset is going to perform.
And what about local infrastructure? Because sometimes it seems to me that the destination actually wants you to come in and help with the infrastructure. That can be part of the deal, can't it?
Absolutely.
So how do you look at that? What's got to exist already before that?
I think different strokes for different folks, as they say. Different risk appetites. I think for someone like myself, we want to see a little bit more infrastructure already there. I think depending on really greenfield infrastructure is what you have to be a real expert in. And then again, as we spoke about before, you have to make sure your partners are experts and they have local partnership as well, as you spoke about. Because really building infrastructure from the ground up, we see how hard it is just for governments to do in the UK or the US, just to get infrastructure correct. To really do it on a greenfield in a country which you haven't a lot of experience is very, very difficult.
Time is a little bit short. I want to bring on Guillaume Pellerin, I beg your pardon, who's the CEO of Zoobox Ireland, and just give us a little taste of what you're up to, because again, I think environmentalism is a big part.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So when I started to work in ecotourism about 15 years ago, the North Face was a relatively small brand, and aside from the outdoor enthusiasts, nobody knew about it. Patagonia was not known and was not making a lot of profit. And now we see a big raise in ecotourism. And I can talk a bit about the ZooBox project. So we do turnkey ecotourism sites for national park and private developers. Now, what does it have to do with investment? Because I have 3 minutes. So investors are looking for 3 important things. First thing is guarantees, good solid guarantees on their investment, return, and they're looking for a market. What you have with ecotourism is access for planning in places where no other project would get access. So you have prime real estate. Then you have a lot of help, especially now with the new trend, from local government. We get a lot of interest from the World Bank, for example, for projects in Africa. So you get very low risk investment. And the market is there now. It has been growing, and we see it with our occupancy rate in our sites, which is over 80%. So it's just to say that if you want to learn a bit about our projects and how we minimize the risk of the investors that we have with ecotourism, you're welcome to come and we'll talk. We can explain what we're doing and tell you about the opportunities that we see. Thank you very much.
Before we finish, I did promise a couple of guest appearances. Very quickly, have we got 3 minutes? Have we got 3, have we? I'm just getting the signal here. 2. 2 countries which have, I think, done very well in recent times in attracting outward investment. The 2 gentlemen involved are big experienced players in this world. I'm going to first bring up Edmund Bartlett to talk about the Jamaican experience, just very briefly. And from the investment point of view, what have you done to bring investment in? Could you come up?
That's a challenge to say in 2 minutes what we've done. Firstly, I think the most important thing is to establish an environment that is conducive to investment. The saying goes, investment goes where it's invited and stays where it's appreciated. And so our whole process is to build the infrastructure to enable a better sense of why you need to invest in Jamaica. And the first thing is, to your point, political stability. We have perhaps one of the most enduring democracies in the world, I argue. In fact, the Caribbean is the most stable democratic crescent in the world today. Secondly, we have an industrial climate that is stable. You're not likely to have many trade unions tearing all over you, but you have to be responsible because we're about making sure that there's value for the services that we provide from the citizens of our country. The third is that we have an economic situation that is stable. We've worked hard on building the fundamentals of the economy to be in a very stable and acceptable manner. We have looked at the debt situation that have bogged us down over the years. And in a matter of 3 years, we brought down the debt from a ratio of 140% down to 95% this year. And the IMF has established Jamaica as a kind of poster boy in that regard, as being a country that has reduced its debt by nearly 50% in a matter of 5 years. Then we train. We have a cadre of workers that are efficient, that are born into hospitality situation. In fact, the DNA of Jamaica is hospitality. And so we think that that combination of political stability, social stability, industrial stability, economic stability, and a labor force that is trained and ready to work provides a perfect mix for great investment in Jamaica. And by the way, the IRR in Jamaica is closer to 20%.
And not to be outdone, can I ask Najib Balala to come up stage and do a similar job? Why, again, is it working in Kenya?
Thank you very much, Rajan. I told Talib, I'm not wrong to say when I grow up, I want to become like Talib Rifai. Inspiring, and the value that I get in this place is very vibrant. So I'm optimistic about the results of these presentations I've seen, and then also the knowledge I've learned here today. I want to invite Terra Group in Kenya. I want to invite Dosan Group in Kenya as well, and James. Your advice will be very critical. Marcus, I knew him before. I didn't realize he's a special envoy. But you can become a special envoy for Kenya as well. The most important thing when I was thinking about this topic, I said, it's not just about what the investor's return of investment is. The baseline is about what are the clients or the traveler demands. That's why you just move, not because you want to do it, it's because what you are pushed to do it. This is what I've realized. And I like the thing and the change of words here today, Christopher, the issue of a tour operator, a tour curator. People need to be guided. And I like what you've just said, that you need to have a strong local partner you can trust. When you come to Kenya, you can trust us. We will deliver for you. But the three things that I believe are very crucial is that ease of doing business. The preamble, Rajan, you have just mentioned when you started, is how do you form a company? All that. I can tell you in Kenya, 2014, we were 136 out of 190. Ease of doing business, the World Bank Index. This year, we are 56. Major. Last year alone, 2018 to 2019, we jumped from 61 to 56. Because committed from the leadership, fighting corruption, and making sure that everything now is digital. Our e-visa is digital. Any type of payment you want is on your mobile. You don't pay. You just do it on your mobile. You know, we are the inventors of M-Pesa, which is the mobile money transfer. We did it in Kenya. So innovation, technology in Africa, come to Kenya and you'll see it. So ease of doing business, and the World Economic Forum Index, Tourism Index, is crucial. Kenya, we are not the best. We are number 7 in Africa, led by Mauritius, Ibrahim there. Yeah? But I think that is crucial to make investors decide where they are going. Number 2 is the physical incentives and taxes. The government gives what? In Kenya, any investment in tourism is duty-free and tax-free. So those are the incentives we give, and it starts from my office. I approve you, I take you, and I hold your hand till you deliver your product. This is what we give you in Kenya. And the third thing, which is my brother Edmond here has mentioned, is the five things you've mentioned. Both stability, stability, stability. So those are key, but 2 other things I want to add. Infrastructure, security, and then overall, how do you package it together so that it's marketable? If it's not marketable, you can build a beautiful hotel, but there are no seats to supply. Those are the dangers we have. And Tiffany mentioned this during her presentation of WTDC report. Africa needs air connectivity. That is one fundamental thing we require. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to take much of your time. I'll be speaking later. But today is a great honor and value for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, that is it for this session. Oh, can I just thank the panel? I mean, that is just a taste. I mean, these guys know what they're talking about, and I think we can have so much more conversation, so much more detail that we can get into, because we all want this to work. We all want more investment. We all want Africa, Caribbean, other places in the world to benefit from investment. So yes, this is just the start of the day. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Rajan, and thank you to the panelists. That was beautifully managed. Ladies and gentlemen, Going to have a 10-minute coffee break, okay? The good news is we haven't lost any more time. We started 25 minutes late, we've kept to time, it's now 25 minutes still behind schedule, but if we just have a 10-minute coffee break, the coffee is actually being served behind you, so if you just head to the back of the room and then come back at 11:10, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.